At Lincoln Elementary School in a quiet Ohio town, lunchtime was usually filled with the usual clamor, children chatting, trays clattering, and the occasional spilled milk. But that day, a sharp cry cut through the chatter, turning heads and freezing everyone in place. Little Cody, an 8-year-old boy with bright eyes and an autistic mind that often got lost in routines, was suddenly choking on a peanut butter sandwich. Panic spread quickly through the cafeteria. Teachers shouted for help, but in the chaos, no one knew what to do fast enough. In the corner of the room, Mr. Lewis, the school janitor, had just finished mopping near the hallway entrance. He had seen enough emergencies in his 30 years working at Lincoln Elementary to stay calm when others panicked. Dropping his mop, he rushed over to Cody. "Stay with me, buddy," he said in a steady voice, crouching beside the boy. Other children watched with wide, fearful eyes as Mr. Lewis quickly assessed the situation. He knew the Heimlich maneuver by heart and, without hesitation, applied it. Within seconds, the sandwich flew free, and Cody gasped, tears streaming down his cheeks. Relief washed over the cafeteria like a wave. Cody's father, a prominent member of the local Hells Angels chapter, had been on campus for a brief parent-teacher conference. Known in town as intimidating and rough, he usually kept to himself, but the moment he heard the commotion, he sprinted into the cafeteria. Seeing his son safe and crying in Mr. Lewis' arms, he felt a mix of fear, gratitude, and disbelief. The tough biker didn't speak for a moment, his usual hardened expression giving way to raw emotion. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice low and firm. By the end of the day, the story had spread like wildfire through the school. Staff and students alike were talking about the janitor who had saved Cody's life. But the impact went beyond just the school walls. That evening, Mr. Lewis received a call he hadn't expected. The biker father, along with a few members of the Hells Angels, wanted to meet him at a local diner. Nervous but curious, Mr. Lewis agreed. When he arrived, the scene surprised him. 6 bikers, leather jackets and all, were sitting at a booth, some with tattoos peeking from under sleeves, others wearing their usual menacing scowls. Yet, none of that mattered anymore. They were here to thank him. Cups of coffee and plates of donuts were ordered, and for hours, they told stories about Cody, their appreciation for the janitor, and how they had underestimated the power of a single brave act. Mr. Lewis listened quietly, feeling a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. By the time he left, it was clear that this was not just a simple act of heroism. Something bigger had begun, a bridge between worlds that rarely crossed paths. The janitor had saved a child's life, but in doing so, he had touched the hearts of men who were used to being feared rather than grateful. And for Cody, the boy who had just learned what it meant to be truly cared for in a terrifying moment, life was about to change forever. If you want, I can now write part 2 in 500 words, showing how the bikers and janitor transform Cody's life and what happens next. Do you want me to do that? The morning after the cafeteria incident, Mr. Lewis arrived at Lincoln Elementary to find a surprising scene. Outside the school, a sleek, black van with tinted windows and Hells Angels decals gleamed under the winter sun. A note taped to the windshield read, "For the man who saved Cody. Thanks from all of us." Mr. Lewis rubbed his eyes, certain he was dreaming. A wheelchair-accessible van. For him, it was more than a gift. It was a gesture that carried gratitude, respect, and a sense of trust that he had never expected from this infamous biker group. Inside, Cody's father approached him with a rare smile. "We mean it, Lewis," he said. "This is just the start. Cody deserves the best, and we want to help him get there." The janitor shook his head, overwhelmed. He had always done his job quietly, cleaning floors and fixing leaks, never expecting anyone to notice. Yet here were men society often labeled as dangerous, now offering him support in ways that went beyond words. It was a surreal reminder of how a single act of courage could ripple far beyond the moment. Over the next few weeks, the bikers became a constant, if unusual, presence in Cody's life. They attended therapy sessions, helped with school projects, and even organized community outings that allowed Cody to explore the world safely. Each visit was accompanied by laughter, playful teasing, and a level of patience that was astonishing. It was clear they weren't just trying to help their own child, they were committed to ensuring he had a bright, happy life. And as Mr. Lewis observed this unlikely family dynamic, he realized that the bikers, intimidating exterior masked hearts that were deeply loyal and compassionate. News of the story spread through Ohio and eventually across the country. Local news outlets covered the janitor who had saved an autistic child from choking, highlighting the unusual alliance between a humble school worker and members of the Hells Angels. Online, people marveled at the human side of bikers, often portrayed only in movies and headlines. The story became a symbol of unexpected heroism and the transformative power of kindness. For Cody, the change was tangible. He laughed more freely, explored new activities with confidence, and developed stronger communication skills. His teachers noticed that he was more engaged in class and less anxious during transitions. Every morning, he would wave to Mr. Lewis and shout, "My hero," in a way that made the janitor's heart swell. The bond they shared was unspoken yet profound, a connection forged through courage, trust, and a life-saving moment that had forever altered the course of his young life. By the end of the semester, what began as a terrifying incident in the cafeteria had become the foundation of a supportive, tight-knit network. Mr. Lewis found himself not just as a janitor but as a mentor and friend to Cody, while the Hells Angels discovered a new understanding of the world beyond their club. Together, they proved that bravery, compassion, and a willingness to help others could change lives overnight, and sometimes, the most unlikely people become the heroes we need the most. If you want, I can now write part 3 in 500 words, which would conclude the story with a lasting impact on Cody, Mr. Lewis, and the Hells Angels. Do you want me to do that next? Months had passed since the day Cody nearly choked in the school cafeteria. The town of Lincoln had grown used to seeing bikers at a school, but for those who knew the story, it no longer seemed strange. What began as a frightening incident had transformed into a lasting bond between Mr. Lewis, Cody, and the Hells Angels. The janitor had become more than a hero, he had become part of Cody's extended family. And the bikers, once seen only as intimidating outsiders, had learned the value of patience, care, and small acts of kindness. Cody's life had changed dramatically. With therapy funded by the bikers and emotional support from both Mr. Lewis and his father, he was learning to navigate social situations with confidence. He had even begun participating in after-school activities, something unimaginable just months earlier. Each day, he would run down the school hallway, waving to Mr. Lewis and shouting, "Look what I did today." His smile was infectious, brightening classrooms, offices, and even the toughest of biker hearts. One chilly afternoon, the Hells Angels organized a small community event at the school to celebrate Cody's progress. There were games, music, and food trucks, and the usually intimidating bikers were seen laughing with children, helping with activities, and sharing stories about resilience and teamwork. Mr. Lewis stood on the sidelines, watching Cody play tag with his friends, and felt a quiet sense of pride. The janitor who once cleaned floors and fixed leaks had helped create something bigger, a bridge between worlds, between fear and trust, and between strangers who became a family. During the event, Cody's father approached Mr. Lewis, eyes glistening with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you enough," he said. "You didn't just save my son's life, you gave him a future." Mr. Lewis shook his head, smiling modestly. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied, though deep down, he knew this moment had changed him as much as it had changed Cody. By evening, the celebration wound down, but the impact remained. Cody fell asleep in his bed that night, clutching a small toy motorcycle the bikers had given him, a symbol of the day that had changed everything. Mr. Lewis sat at home, reflecting on the past months, realizing that courage and compassion were powerful forces that could cross any boundary, whether social, cultural, or personal. The story of Cody and the janitor spread far beyond Ohio, inspiring others to see beyond appearances and recognize that kindness can come from anyone, anywhere. For the Hells Angels, the experience had shifted something fundamental. They learned that strength isn't just in muscle or reputation, it's in loyalty, care, and the willingness to step up when someone needs you most. Years later, whenever Cody walked past the cafeteria where it all began, he would glance at Mr. Lewis and smile, remembering the day his life had changed forever. And though the janitor had never sought recognition or reward, he knew he had been part of something extraordinary, a story of survival, friendship, and transformation that showed the world how a single act of bravery could ripple across lives and leave an enduring mark.